This is The Real Gig with Brett Alexander.
A perennial topic with the Badleys can always be around studios. And I can start you off.
All right.
I'm going to start you off. Like, this place was my first view into a real studio space, and you were the first real studio engineer I ever met. I mean, other than like, you know, my professor and
sure,
you know, whatever, but like somebody out in the world.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah. So in my mind, you had all this experience, and you were like, you were there for a year.
Yeah.
And but it didn't, you know, to me it was like, you know, somebody that had just did it. They were at the studio and they just recorded, and they didn't even think about it. I mean, but that's kind of your personality. You could just kind of drop you in anywhere.
Yeah. And
you were, you know, but you actually had to take on a lot of responsibility there.
Sure.
Anyway, my first impression was that it was, you know, amazeballs, and it was everything I wanted to see and
sure,
learn about. So that's my launch point into anything that you might have experienced in those early years here.
Well, my first, I think on a previous episode we talked about kind of the internship thing and, you know, just kind of hanging and all that, and then kind of the transition into actually being here, you know, but then a lot of it was kind of like, once you're here, it was just kind of like getting thrown into the wolves and, fighting your way out. But like there was like a Christian record label here at that time, you know, and you know, there were some pretty sketch characters.
There were some sketch characters
coming and going. Yeah. You know, like with that, you know,
right.
But you know, being that, well, funny story. I'll start by saying this. It was like Kelly, my wife, Kelly was saying, she was telling this story at one point, and she's like, well, you know, like, you know, we went to, like, when they were kids, they went to this metal show, right? They went to this metal show. They said, we went to this metal show, you know, and we thought it was going to be this big metal band. This metal band was playing. And like, they get there and the metal band plays for a while, you know, and it turns out that the metal band is a Christian metal band. Yeah, it's a Christian. It's a Christian metal band, and then they stop in the middle, and then they go into this whole long sermon. You know, like, right. You know, and they're all like, you know, metalhead,
right? You know,
metalhead guys and girls with her clan, and they're like,
yeah,
you know, this friggin' sucks. You know, they're like, turns it into like, you know, a sermon, and all this, and it was like, you know, this sucks. We came to hear, you know,
I want to bang my head.
Yeah, I want to, you know, I came here to see a metal show,
right?
Not this. And then it turns out that the band is Messiah Prophet, who was this band Messiah Prophet that recorded out of here,
right?
So like when I came down here to start working here, like very recently, I like went into the tape locker and found like a basic track sheet with my handwriting on it.
Really, from them?
From them, and then I gave it to Kelly as I gave it to her. You know, it's like, of Messiah Prophet, because Messiah Prophet in their, you know, folklore of going to metal shows and going to see Metallica and going to see, you know, Megadeth and, you know, everybody else.
Brett,
in the 80s, but Messiah Prophet was this like we went to the metal show and got preached to.
One of the guys I played guitar with at college was Andy, the blonde-haired Andy, the guitar player.
Yeah.
Who had like a Dean.
Yeah, that's Andy. I remember Andy. And the thing I remember about Andy is Andy was always like kind of, what do I want to say about Andy? I just remember him always going, oh, that's heresy. That's heresy. Yeah, you know, like it wasn't about heresy.
He was a newly minted born-again man. And he was a college level student, which meant you had all the emotions, and it was just this.
It wasn't like actual heresy that he was talking about. He's talking about like, well, you know, if you're not going to be using a Marshall half stack, that's harsh heresy. You know?
Oh yeah,
or whatever that was. That's what I remember about Andy. You know, he's like really, really, really opinionated about things.
Well, he had perfect hair.
He did have very nice hair.
I will tell you that.
I remember the blonde
And
kid. I remember him standing behind the meter bridge, listening to things. I remember that. I remember him
with a very serious look on his face.
Yeah. And then there was then there was like CT. You probably remember CT Cash.
I do remember CT.
CT was like the guy who like CT kind of like, I would give CT was from Kentucky, and CT I would give credit for introducing chicken wings to Front Street Station.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I would give that distinction. I will say he did it.
Okay.
Because he was like from Kentucky, and he came up there and got them to start serving them.
Okay.
As I remember, and then the Susquehanna students started coming in. That became a big thing for many years there. Yeah, because that was our hang. We'd leave there and we'd go down there. But yeah, like the studio thing, here was, like my big thing is like I didn't have a lot of experience, but I'm working with like Bill Grabowski, who never shows up. You know what I mean? So it would be like, so I was like this ghost engineer for Bill, who was supposed to be finishing these projects. You know what I mean? And whoever he was working in, they're like, okay, they're coming in.
Let's frame this. So there are paying customers. Let's not say any genre, anything like that. There's paying customers working on a project. The producers is our friend Bill.
Yeah.
And Bill is legendary for not being on the time of what the call sheet is, even in his own house.
No. Even when he had a studio in his own house, he was late for sessions.
In his own house.
Late for sessions in his own house.
So you are the engineer because everybody flown the nest to go to build Whitney Houston studio. You are the guy that's here. And you are also now client relations.
Sure.
You welcome them in. You are the one that probably had to like bill them or something.
Sure.
No bill.
But Bill, like it'd say, okay, we're going to come in at 6:00. The client's coming in at 6:00 to listen to some mixes.
Mm-hmm.
So Bill's supposed to be at the studio by maybe 2. We're gonna do these mixes together.
Yeah.
We're gonna work them out.
Yeah.
And get them done so the client can come in and listen to the mixes.
Yeah.
Well, Bill ain't there at 2. Bill ain't there at 3. Bill ain't there at 4. So Bill's calling me saying, "Go ahead and mix everything." Then Bill would show up at 7, right? So then my job was, okay, in the afternoon, I'm like, I'm brand new. I have like no business doing this work for these people. I'm brand new, and I'm like trying to mix it and get it on because it was going on to 1/4-inch tape or tape, half-inch, whatever it was.
Right.
At the time, and get these mixes done. And I'm doing the mixes, and then Bill would show up at 7. Then like at 6 or whatever, Bill would call and say, I'm the one he always said, I'm in Clark's Ferry, like by Harrisburg, which is 45 minutes away. It was always Clark's Ferry. He was always going. And then he said, just tell him I went to dinner, and I'll be right back. So like I'm like got these people sitting there, waiting to hear their finished record.
Yeah.
And which I have done, And then like 7:00, Bill would walk in the door and he goes, "Oh yeah, we got everything done." Hit
record. He'd hit play.
He never even heard them. He never even heard the mixes.
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean? Like he had never even heard them. And the client goes, "Oh, Bill, you're a genius." It's like
ghost producing.
Yeah, ghost producing. They were fun because it was like, like they had like this Christian record label here, and and it was a little sketch, but like, to put it nicely, the whole thing was a little sketch.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get Bill and Scott that would come in at night and then be like bootlegging cassettes for biker gangs and things like that was the dichotomy of this place.
Well, and then when Scott Berger got back and you guys could actually just book on overnights, or you could do all these things that were kind of off the clock type of things that were maybe sanctioned or unsanctioned, but bands started coming through here.
Yeah. And then that was a good period. It was a good period. I mean, the good period for studios. I mean, it was still pre home recording.
Right.
You couldn't really make a record at home. You still needed to go to a studio to make a record.
Right.
At that time.
Yep.
And and like to this day, like a place like this place would be commanding a higher rate in the early 80s than it would be now.
I actually have the price
Card
list, the Ray card from 1980 when they opened, and I think 24 track was brand new, and it was $120 an hour.
Yeah. Oh.
So there you go, kids.
Right. You know, I mean, and then you think like, you know, that's the thing about, you know, like technology is deflationary.
Right. Exactly. So it's like you bring in more to the masses.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the same. And this is the disruption series of your podcast.
Yeah.
Where we get into the things where because of that, everybody can start doing it. Is it as good? No, it's not. It is not considered as well. The songs aren't considered as well if everybody can do it all at the same time and flood it out. But at the same time, nobody cares about your opinion.
No.
And your art sense and all these things. And it is what it is. So it's a weird thing coming from knowing that structure, that original studio filter.
Right.
Where you had to earn money. I even have a chip on my shoulder about it. Like when people want to commit to a project at the studio, like, you know, granted, like our Badleys band was a little football team, and we all had each other to lean on, and we all agreed the record was going to cost $5,000
or whatever it was going to cost,
or $8,000 all in.
Yeah.
So in the early 90s, we had to raise $8,000. We had to have that in the bank account.
Yeah.
And we did. And we paid for studio time. We pre-pro'd. We paid for studio time. We mixed. We did all the thing. We did the first pressing. And I know that we made it back really through the same culture as what's happening now, which is all gigs.
Yeah.
Because we weren't making money off of record sales. I mean, no, we were, not through a label or a radio play. Like, we were getting scanned.
Yeah.
But nobody was making a living off of that, of those spins. So it's the same culture. And I think that, again, another layer of your podcast is our Gen Xers. Greatest generation, Gen Xers, because of the commitment level, we had to do that. And yes, it's different now, but if you want to commit to something, it really means like it's going to be uncomfortable and you're going to have to work hard at it. We don't just because we have this technology, we don't say it's all easy. It's not easy. It's never easy. And that's the lesson the studio taught me over all these years. Mm-hmm. Was like, guess what? It's not what you think. It's not what you think. It's not what you think. And the more you get along the path of understanding why it's the coolest tool, but you have to learn how to work the tool. Yeah. And it starts at the song. Yeah. And then you come back to the original thing anyway, Yeah.
Well, that was I, like I played in high school, in college, played in, bar bands. But like the next step for me was, thrown into a recording studio, learning that. A better next step would have been working with a producer.
Right.
You know what I mean? That can teach you how to be a band, because ultimately it kind of comes back to the band, and the band is driving it. Because that's even to this day.
We did miss a critical industry step.
Yeah, we did it out of order, basically.
Yeah, we did it out of order. Yeah.
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 And that was, kind of interesting in a way, mm-hmm. Just because, I don't know. I mean, like I know when we started, especially up in Danville, when we had the place up in Danville, it was like nobody around here knew what pre-production was.
Right. Well, we're going to go record.
Yeah, we're going to make a record. We're going to record it. We wrote some songs.
Yeah.
And I have a, we've touched on this before. I just think it's like a really difficult process, and it's like, it's not the same as just, it's a skill, I mean, the younger bands today are much more adept at it than we were. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's kind of in their vernacular, because they grew up.
They understand.
They know how to record.
Yeah,
and they know how to use software.
They know there's a click track.
Yeah,
they know there's these things that.
Where most of us, when we're starting, we didn't. Yeah. We didn't know that kind of thing was what was done, or how that worked, or you kind of learn that along the way.
Or you need those people to elevate you up and help you step up. You need the mentor aspect in a lot of ways. If there's some brilliant band or some band that's got some X factor that people are liking, they get representation in some deal. They have these mentors in the interest of commerce, but these people were the gatekeepers. They had the filter system, and that kind of thing. Just because there's so many little things, you kind of need to understand how they work.
Yeah.
Starting with that song and how do you arrange it, and how do you, Bruce Fairbairn making Aerosmith's comeback record, Pump, and having them make it on a TAC 8-track. The record has to work on a TAC 8-track, which means it's just song and arrangement. And so then you can blow it up, and they blew it up into a big 3D kind of Star Wars, pyromania production with the horns, and Fairbairn had the horns, and but that's the core. That's the unsexy stuff.
Yeah,
of just sitting around, and it's not like
great band.
Yeah, and we're not, and it's like you're not on a reality show of like this is the studio and it's glorious. Yeah, the studio is glorious, but it's made to be a tool, a really inspiring tool, and so that's what the studio pounded into me.
Yeah.
When you finally chip away at all the things, it's great.
It's like for me,
Butch Walker would probably be like, "Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me."
Yeah. And it's usually when you hear people you read a biography or you watch an interview or whatever on TV or whatever. It's usually a fairly similar tale. We all talked about watching that Tragically Hip story on Amazon Prime. Was that on whatever? Like that 4-part story about them and the whole arc of their career, and it was very relatable. It was the same stuff, same stuff. And they're from Kingston, Ontario, and totally different path, but sort of the same process. I don't know. There's things about that are I don't know. It makes you. I don't know if it makes me sad or something or what. So like if you. What was I going to say? I'll redirect. But it's if you. They said back in the day, when radio started, there was a first generation of radio, I don't know the year, when actually radio would have
gone out over the airwaves. The first,
when radio became mass consumed.
1918.
It's World War I.
World War I.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
So they said, okay, there's the first generation.
Yeah.
Of people that would have got on the radio and gave you the news.
Right.
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 And okay, so they gave you the news. Everybody sat home with their
little radio receiver.
Radio receiver and listened to these guys.
In 1918.
Yeah. And listen to these guys giving you the news, right? So then the next generation comes along.
Yeah.
That grew up listening to that. That first generation didn't grow up listening to anybody.
No. And the second generation had that sound of that delivery imprinted on them at home.
So the second generations comes out and they start talking like this because
they go.
But the first generation probably didn't talk about like that at all.
Yeah.
It just came through the little speaker and sounded like that.
Yeah.
And now nowadays, the way guys sing, like a younger band sings, they sing like Pro Tools sounds. They sing like Atari sounds. They sing like
this is
like
my
Melodyne.
favorite analogy. It's my favorite discussion. And I can I take one little aside? I swear to God that I read something where Katy Perry on her first record or her first kind of smash, that she came from pop and rock. I mean, you're a musician and you're a kid, you're into whatever.
Yeah.
And she liked Breaking Benjamin. And I swear to this day that Katy Perry's "ooh" is Ben Burnley's "ooh," kind of sound.
I never knew that she was a fan.
You know what? You better fact check that. But the
one I know was a big fan of Breaking Benjamin is Carrie Underwood.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I know.
Well, Carrie,
right.
You're welcome. That's all I can say. welcome.
Freddie, yeah. Well, let's talk
Freddie.
a second because he was in here.
Oh,
Because Freddie was just like, it was like that. Like Freddie was, like I remember meeting Freddie and it was like, he's like, Brett, it's gonna be a bidding war, man. It's gonna be a bidding war. This is before we recorded anything. Right. And like Freddie was all over the place. Like Freddie, I mean, like in a good way, in a wonderful way. What I mean? Like he was like so friggin' into it. What I mean? He had this whole overreaching plan of how this was going to happen for these guys.
Yes.
And like whatever, he looked at the camera and said, "I did it." I don't think it's unfair to say that those guys owe him a very big debt. Well, I don't think they would deny that. I mean, we're friends with most of those guys. You know what I mean?
Of course.
All of them, pretty much, except the new guys that we never met. But like,
we just say, like you say it about Freddie all the time. It's like I love the veracity of the conversations. Yeah. Can't take it every day. Can't take it every day, Fred. Can't take it every day. He knows. We talk about it all the time. Well, how are you? How are you? Yeah. You can't take me every day. No. Quite frankly, he is he is such
it's like a Jaeger bomb or something. I might be able to drink one, but not every day. I can't have it for breakfast.
Yeah, I can't have it for breakfast every day.
Yeah,
every day.
Every day.
But Freddie has a fandom, and then the deep fandom knowledge. So he's like a fanzine level knowledge of all the things that he loves. And because of that, when he goes all in on something that's meaningful to him, he's just like a dog with a bone, and that's what he did for those guys. That's what he did, like playing them on the radio and getting people like psyched.
But he was, I mean, most radio guys are not, I don't even know what the word I would use. Like, they don't have as much depth of knowledge. Like they're kind of hanging in the pop world. You know what I mean? Like he's like, I would put him
true
big music fan.
Yes,
like
a true fan.
Yeah, true fan of music
of minutia that is not unimportant.
No, and a musician can tell you the bass player in whatever band.
Right.
But most time the radio people cannot.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he can, unless they were married to somebody famous or something.
Right on.
But he can do that. What I mean? And he's like a true blue fan, and I love the guy. I've always enjoyed him, and he's made me laugh. So
well, he's newly beloved here because he started talking about in Chad's studio here, talking about his experiences in the music biz and with music and his relationship to everything. And it's super compelling because he is got all this like manic energy that reads true every single time. And he's kind of come back into our lives.
Yeah, with this last segment.
It's gig really neat. It's so neat.
I was so happy to see him, man. So happy to see him. I love him. Yeah, he's fun. He's like but he was right, like back in the day on that particular that particular story, he was right. Mm-hmm. Man, he can't take it away from him, and he took a big chance, and it worked.
It really did, and then like many stories, you got the carpet kind of pulled out from under him, like that kind of stuff. When the band has new handlers and everybody's like leveling up, and then your original people gotta kind of fall by the wayside. We were kind of in that category a little bit, only because we did have designs on finishing 10 songs or 12 songs, and we had recorded 5 songs with Ben and the guys, and so. We were looking to, have designs on things of our own because we recognized it as something that was truly great. And that was our biggest studio experience right there because we had all these possibilities. Yeah. And then it got strange to the point where they started making Saturate, where they had gotten the idea from Saturation Acres. Yeah. The recording studio. They started making Saturate, and they asked us to send our ADAT tapes of our 24 tracks of recording, which we kind of ethically complied with.
Sure.
because they couldn't figure out how to get some of the sounds that we had created.
Which they just kind of put them up side by side, like what they were.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a story. I wasn't there, but Jeremy told me,
Yeah.
They just kind of put them up side by side and then would
Kind of
record,
recreated
and then
it.
they would pull from the old one what they needed.
Right.
Like for some of the,
right.
the ancillary stuff that, like sounds and effects and things like that, or things that they either wanted to redo and tweak or just use from the original.
Yeah.
And
that again is a great example of in the studio of that kind of demoitis thing where you're like, this feels like this is the exact thing that has to happen to me, happen in the mix, in the song and the arrangement. And you're like, we did it this way. And, some of that is valid. A lot of times the demoitis is based on an overall feeling. If you can't recreate that feeling over and over, then there's some issue somewhere. But, it's still really difficult to then go take your demos that everybody got psyched about and then create your first record.
Yeah.
So, hats off to those guys. But yeah, they couldn't have pulled it all off without us.
No, I mean,
Mister.
but like the way those records were made, like, and subsequent records were made, it's kind of like was not really our thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think probably that process, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't make you feel good. I mean, it's kind of like you certainly wanted to be involved with the success of it, but like that process was not really what we did. I mean, if it had been like, if it had been something like the Black Crowes or the,
right,
we were a little more au natural than
we were kind of a more like let's record it and get a vibe and shape it up, kind of thing, as opposed to let's assemble and make it enormous.
That kind of,
which on the benchmark of whatever the '90s gave them,
records.
So
records are made, not played. That headspace.
Right on.
And that really wasn't what, to this day, what we do.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying one way is better than the other. I'm just saying, matching where that thing went to where we were at and still are at. That maybe it wasn't the best of choices, but
Hey, I mean,
hey, it would have certainly been,
the
gift certificate to Red Lobster would have been nice.
I mean, one thing,
maybe that would have been nice.
Fucking thing. I mean,
I'd enjoyed that.
One wrap present. I mean, I don't know, fucking gift card to fucking Target. Give me one thing. I mean, look, we have gold coming out of that whole thing. We have lifelong friends,
no doubt.
We have lifelong talented friends. Like super talented people, and it's
so many guys that that you love.
Exactly.
I mean, love them.
And that's the long term, and that's basically all we were ever interested in anyway.
Sure.
Is like our community of makers and stuff like that. So and everybody is going to have a different experience with these gigs / studios, with all these different aspects of everything. But like our path, I think, and your path that kind of started the trajectory of everything. It's the trajectory. I don't know what you're talking about.
You've had too much penny pasta.
We've had a great projection, a great trajectory. All year.
We have lots of projections.
All year. Your trajectory with that studio experience that kind of like feels like launched our path then back home to your basement studio, then to Saturation Acre studio, then to this studio.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful for all of the iterations of those things based on need of what we had to do. And I don't know, that's my point to the kids. You either have to do it or you don't.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? What are we doing here? What are we doing? Come on. You know, I mean, there's a lot of hardship. It's just hard to do.
Yeah.
The iterations of those things. But I'm like so grateful for the very first studio experience and then this one right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, I don't know. I mean, I think I love, and I don't think it's really the context of what they meant in the song, but this is what it means to me. You know, this particular lyric is, you know, the Grateful Dead, you know, we used to play for silver, now we play for life. You know what I mean?
Brett Alexander with a lyrical reference.
You know, yeah.
That was out of left field, that it was unpredicted. The Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
Sir.
Jack Straw, yeah. But I mean, like I said, I'm not a
Professional, ladies and gentlemen, he is a professional.
I always love that. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you're doing this and you're trying to make a career out of it. And you do. And it's life. After a while,
it is life,
you know?
and I'm grateful for for all that stuff.
Yep, more to come. That's it. That's what I got.
This podcast was produced by Stone State Entertainment.